All right, Jesse on Fire, welcome back to the channel. I have a fun video to do today, okay? So I made a post on Instagram yesterday where I said, you know what I think? I think that the version of Francis Ngannou that we just saw last night at UFC 260 might have been the most dominant fighter in the history of the human race. Like, if you took any guy on his absolute best day and you put them in the octagon with Francis Ngannou last night, I don't think there's a single person on any day ever that could have beat him. And I will stand by that. Okay, and basically what I was saying, obviously, is I think he beats a prime Cain Velasquez, a prime Junior Dos Santos, a prime Brock Lesnar, a prime Fedor Emelianenko, and then there's one that I am not saying yet that is the super fight of all super fights, the ultimate. If you take a historical figure or maybe just a fighter from, earlier in the career, and you got to stick them in the octagon with Francis Ngannou, I'm going to tell you what it is, okay? Because I didn't say it yet, and you're going to be like, who could it be? Who could it possibly be? I'm going to say it, and your brains are just going to go, because I have the ultimate super fight, okay? So, anyway, but let's go through these guys, and I'll break down why I don't think any of them could beat Francis, all right? So, anyway, if you like the content, subscribe and ring the bell. Wait for the last one, because when I say it, you're just going to be like, oh my God, can you imagine? Okay, So subscribe, because I do videos like this all the time. So anyway, so let's go first, right? Brock Lesnar is the one who I think would actually have the best chance against him. Okay, I don't know if I said that in the prelim, but and that's not the super fight. But I think of all those fighters, I think a prime Brock Lesnar is the one who has the best chance. Now, people, for whatever reason, okay, there became like this idea that like Brock Lesnar was a joke. Like he was a champion. He was like a joke, dude. I'm like, what? I mean, obviously only a casual person would say that. And all of a sudden I'm using that word all the time, which I don't normally use. But that is just ridiculous. That is a ridiculous take. And, I think like styles make fights, man. Styles make fights. And the bottom line is this, like, when he was going to fight DC and everyone was picking DC, I was like, dude, are you guys mental? Now, at the time, Brock was coming off TRT, and so you never know what kind of version you have. A guy who's been on testosterone his whole life and then it's coming off. You never know what kind of version of that you're going to get. But a prime Brock is a horrendous matchup for DC. Horrendous. Because, basically Brock Lesnar before, right, in his prime, was basically the same thing as Francis Ngannou, the first version. He was so dominant in one thing, right? Like, in Francis was like, he's going to go wild, and if he lands, you die. Like, it's just that simple, right? Brock was like a AAA, prime All-American super heavyweight wrestler who moves like a cat. And he's like the most gigantic human being. He's like as big as a human can get, still be in good shape and fight in the UFC. Okay, if he gets on top of you, you are finished, dude. Like, he gets on top of you, he's the last heavyweight you want on top of you. And so with that DC fight, I'm like, you guys think DC is going to be able to not, like, DC doesn't have like long reach, right? Like, Cain beat Brock Lesnar, but Cain I also don't think beat the best Brock Lesnar. And DC at that phase of his career wasn't Cain. So anyway, the bottom line is this. Brock Lesnar, if he's able to shoot fast on Francis and get a hold of him, I realize Francis is now a very good wrestler, and he proved that on Saturday. But Brock's a different animal. Like, that's a different animal. So I think he really is the only one of these guys that I would say had like a half decent chance of beating that Francis, because if Francis has a weakness, it's sure as hell not on his feet. And he's a good wrestler, but if you put him on his back, he might get tired and you might be able to hurt him, and then he slows down enough that you can continue to do that. Brock is the only one that I see, Brock in his prime is the only one who I see that might have had a really good chance of doing that. But also, if he eats a shot, he dies just like everyone else. So I still would pick Francis, but at least Brock, it's like, man, let's see what happens. Okay, so Cain Velasquez. So I think a lot of people would say, well, like Todd Atkins, he said prime Cain runs through Francis. I totally disagree, and I'll tell you why. Because how does Cain Velasquez win, right? Like, how did Cain win? And he is a very interesting matchup, because Cain was just going to come at you nonstop, just going to wear you down. So Francis being as big and strong as he is, that's just physics, okay? Like at a certain point, he's going to get tired, right? Like he's going to get tired. So if you're fighting against his gas tank, then yeah, Cain is a great guy to get you tired, okay? Here's the problem. Here is the main problem, okay? So where Brock is a shoot-in super fast and so strong, he's likely to get you down. Cain is a very fast, not as strong as Brock, but also takes insane chances, right? Like he came in, he's just nonstop volume. Okay, so what are you doing when you're volume? You're throwing punches and you're exposed, okay? It takes Francis 3 inches of this to knock you out, okay? Like you're gonna get touched, man. Like Cain's gonna get touched. And so the idea that he's gonna be, and also Francis can wrestle now. Like the old Francis versus a prime Cain, yeah, probably Cain wins that fight. I mean, the fact that they fought and Francis literally made him look like it was like, yeah, you can't do this anymore. Okay, like you think prime Cain is that much better than that Cain? I mean, probably, but it's good enough to overcome Francis? Like, I don't think so. He's going to get hit and he's going to go to sleep. I mean, he could be, here's the thing. Here's the other thing. Prime Cain could be knocked out. Prime Cain got knocked out in like 30 seconds against Junior Dos Santos with 1 shot. Okay, so it means, and I'm not, look, Cain was a savage, but his off button exists, right? Like he had an off button in his prime, which means that if Francis touches him, he's going night-night. Okay, like they're just plain and simple. Does anyone really believe that Cain Velasquez would be able to wear Francis Ngannou down for 5 rounds without getting hit even 1 time clean? Because Stipe has a better chin than Cain did in his prime. Like Stipe in the first fight took shots that would have knocked Cain out. Okay, so that's another thing, dude. If anybody's gonna if you're looking for one of the strongest chins in the history of the heavyweight division, I think Stipe demonstrated that that's him right there. Now I know he got knocked out by DC with that shot he didn't see coming, but man, he took some serious shots from Francis in both the first fight and the second fight before he actually got knocked out. But yeah, so Cain, no, I don't believe it. I don't think that would have been a good night for Cain. So the only other person that's really in the conversation for okay, what happens in their prime is probably Fedor. However, I think it's fair to say that Cain and Fedor, I've always said what my dream fight is, my ultimate dream fight would be Cain Velasquez in his prime against Fedor in his prime. And that's still true. But in this case now, with the last one I'm going to say, that is now my dream fight. Okay, so Fedor and Cain, they're so similar. They're so similar that I would love to have seen them fight. They're basically a mirror image of each other. Except Fedor's a little bit smaller, I think. A little bit smaller. And so, same story as Cain. I don't need to go through the whole thing. Same story as Cain. He's going to get touched. He's going to go night-night. He almost got knocked out by Kevin Randleman. He almost got knocked out by, he did get knocked out multiple times by guys at the end of his career, but also Andrei Arlovsky almost knocked him out. So the bottom line is, this version of Francis rips through Fedor, in my opinion, in his prime. So here we go. What's the dream fight? The ultimate so I just went through Fedor, Cain, and Brock Lesnar in their primes, right? So who could I possibly be talking about, right? Like who could I possibly be talking about? Who could be a better matchup for Francis than those guys, right? Ready? TRT, Alistair Overeem, okay? So Alistair Overeem in the height of his juiced version, that's my dream fight. That one, I'm going to say, probably Francis, but that's the fight I would want to see. Absolutely dead prime Alistair Overeem, juiced out of his mind against Francis. Can you imagine that fight? Those two guys, if those two guys threw at the same time and their fists hit each other, there'd be like a nuclear explosion. But yeah, I still pick Francis just because, Alistair, even though he was, he's so big, he still had always been able to be knocked out, right? Like he's always been able to be knocked out. And with Francis, we have no idea if he can be knocked out. You gotta, he is a specimen that is on a whole different level. So for him to get hit and go unconscious, we are speculating that a person can hit him that hard. I'm not saying that no one could knock him out, but I'm saying that's yet to be proven. We are yet to see that a single shot can take this guy out. He's he is not like anyone else, right? So, yeah. I don't know, man. I think I very, very confidently think that Francis would beat any other man in their prime on their best day. Period. And the fact that a guy like him exists, like now I'm thinking about TRT Alistair, the fact that a person like Francis exists without juice is just mind-boggling, man. I mean, please let this guy find some like WNBA like athlete or some woman that is like the whatever equivalent of him and let them just create superhumans, because I will watch their career, like whatever his kids do, they are going to be amazing, dude, and it's going to be fun to watch. So anyway, that is what I've got. So if you disagree, tell me about it in the comments. Tell me why, though. Don't just say, oh, Cain would have run through him. Really? Why? So because he's not going to get punched? He's not going to get punched? Anyway, that's what I got. Subscribe to the channel. Ring the bell. Peace.